Coming in at number 5, we've got Pumpkinhead. That's right, the titular terror from the premier gourd-themed horror movie. Pumpkinhead cannot be stopped. I mean, technically, he can be, but only temporarily and at great personal cost. And also, the threat will always be looming, never to actually be cast away. Plus, it's in human nature to keep cycles like this going. See, Pumpkinhead is all about revenge. Humans love revenge, it's in our blood. Someone killed your family, now you gotta kill their family. But then the family of their family will kill you, and whatever new family you've made in that time it took you to kill their family will now be a target for the next revenge-fueled family rampage. You see what I'm getting at? Cycles of revenge never end, even if we all know that an eye for an eye will make the whole world blind. Seems like everyone's just willing to go sightless if it means getting back at someone else. We learn the true nature of revenge in Pumpkinhead when poor Ed Harley puts his own life on the line to strike back at the chopper-riding teens who took his son's life. By performing the revenge ritual, he brings the hideous monster to life, which then goes on a killing spree. Soon enough though, Ed realizes that the revenge he sought wasn't what he really wanted. He also realizes that it's quickly going way too far and will likely continue even after all the involved biker teens are dead. This realization is accompanied by the discovery that he and the monster are now one. So the only way to take it down is to kill himself, which he does. But now, after all that, Ed is buried in Pumpkinhead's grave, waiting for the next unlucky soul to come around looking for revenge. And somebody will, which will start this whole ordeal over again. So even if Pumpkinhead is temporarily stopped, it's inevitable that someone else will indeed come along and bring the monster to life. Nobody ever seems to learn, eh? History repeating itself, and so on. Coming in at number 4, we've got Clover from Cloverfield. We've talked about this before on the channel, but it's worth bringing up for this list. The Clover we meet in New York on the night of Rob's going away party is just a wee baby. That's right, the enormous, destructive, and seemingly indestructible monster that rampages through the city is only a fraction of the size that it could one day be. Most of Cloverfield is seen through the lens of HUD's camera and doesn't feature too much of the monster. However, through context and some reversible Easter eggs, we learn all sorts of terrible details about this creature. It spawns strange parasites that flood the underground and decapitates the Statue of Liberty. The government seems to have a contingency plan for something like this though. They execute the Hammer Down Protocol, which seems to be a crazy concentrated rain of explosives meant to level Manhattan and kill the monster. Not everyone evacuates, so we get a front row seat of widespread destruction. One might assume that so much explosive power concentrated on one area would just kill about anything, right? But after the credits, we get a little soundbite that seems to say, "Help us." Play it backwards though, and you hear, "It's still alive." Even Hammer Down Protocol wasn't enough to fell a baby Clover. So what would stop a monster like this? Good question. I actually don't have an answer for it. It can't be stopped. You know, the whole point behind this video. Plus, if you watch the Cloverfield Paradox, you meet another full-grown Clover, and this thing breaks through the clouds standing on 2 feet. Yeah, unstoppable indeed. Coming in at number 3, we've got It from It Follows. If throwing a bunch of electronics into a swimming pool can't stop this thing, nothing can. Okay, all jokes about the goofy climax aside, the monster from It Follows is seriously upsetting. It will follow you to the ends of the earth forever and ever, always at the same pace, and there's nothing you can do to stop it. Sure, you could pass it on to someone and they could do the same, but you're only prolonging the inevitable. Eventually someone will slip up and get caught, and then the creature will work its way down the line. People will be careful if they know the rules, but there's no way to actually track who's getting stalked when and who's already been caught. Unless somebody wants to go to great lengths and create some sort of comprehensive sexually transmitted demon database, which would also require having people believe in this thing in the first place, it would be way too hard to track without dedicating your entire life to it. So once you get it, it will loom over you for the rest of your days. Killing it doesn't work either. You can shoot it or shock it or attempt to drown it and it'll still come back in the form of some human somewhere. Just a total nightmare however you slice it. So yeah, it can't be stopped. It'll follow, you know, because it follows. Coming in at number 2, we've got Godzilla. An all-time legendary movie monster, Godzilla truly is king. There's nothing the average person can do about the nuclear lizard from the deep. And even with extensive resources mobilized, you'll have to hope and pray that whatever you're attempting will work. And even if it does work, there are more iterations of Godzilla and co waiting for you. Technically, Godzilla has died at least 4 times. Even though he's immune to conventional weaponry and can heal at insane rates, it's indeed possible to end Godzilla's life. In the original, he is just absolutely obliterated by the oxygen destroyer. Later on, in Godzilla 1985, he's killed via cadmium missile-induced heart failure. Even then, he comes back to life thanks to nuclear fallout. While fighting Destroya, his nuclear heart overheats and melts down, and in Godzilla, Mothra, and King Ghidorah, giant monsters all out attack, a missile goes off within his chest, causing atomic energy to disintegrate him. With this last one though, his heart starts beating again anyways while the credits roll. So it is incredibly hard to kill Godzilla, and even if you do kill him, it's not guaranteed that he'll stay that way. And even if he does, he'll just come back another time in another movie. So there is no stopping Godzilla. You might as well let whatever destruction is underway run its course and then hope that he returns to the sea. I suppose in Shin Godzilla they managed to freeze him in place forever, but he could always wake up. And finally at number 1, we've got the gods from The Cabin in the Woods. You might be wondering, how do you top Godzilla on an unstoppable monster list? Well, by looking inwards. Who really has the final say over what monsters stick around and which ones are lost to obscurity? The protagonist? The government? The child of prophecy? The answer is actually none of the above. It's the movie-going audience. And nowhere is this more clear than in the super meta love letter to horror that is Cabin in the Woods. See, you can point to any of the monsters that are released from their holding cells and say that is a monster that cannot be stopped. However, that's only partially true, seeing as all of failsafe monsters from around the world were thwarted. But there is a group of monsters who will never stop and never be satisfied. The vengeful gods above, who force humans to play out their petty horror dramas for their satisfaction. These gods can be interpreted as literal eldritch deities watching over humanity and annihilating everything when they're unhappy. But they can also be seen as stand-ins for the horror audience at large. They want to see new concepts put into place, but they also have to stick to the familiar formulas. There needs to be more horror, but you can't just retread the same ground. Fit these roles, shed more blood, or else. And if that doesn't sound like an audience, I don't know what does. The rampage never ends, in universe or symbolically. Coming in at number 5, we've got the Blob. Not only is this thing canonically indestructible, but you'll also never stop singing the theme song. How is it that horror movies didn't adopt the practice of kicking off their flick with an absolute banger of a tune? It creeps and leaps and glides and slides. Beware of the Blob. What an earworm. That's the kind of song that makes you want to dance like one of the kids from Peanuts. But folks who saw it when it first arrived on the scene don't necessarily associate the song with merriment. It's now associated with a murderous, flesh-melting mass of goo. And now that we've got the song out of the way, let's talk about why the Blob is so hard to stop. Literally hailing from outer space, this gelatinous creature will stop at nothing to take over the world as we know it. It starts small, but like the good little prince in Katamari, quickly gains size and momentum. It absorbs and melts pretty much any organic matter it comes into contact with, eventually becoming large enough to subsume just about anything. Had it been left unchecked for any longer than it was, it's unlikely that anyone would have survived. Thankfully, they were able to airlift the thing way out into the frosty expanse of the Arctic in time to save the world. Some quick thinking involving CO2 fire extinguishers allowed them to keep it dormant long enough to get it all the way out to the tundra. However, this did not kill the Blob. Nothing can kill the Blob. Instead, these sub-zero temperatures will keep the thing in check, preventing it from moving freely and growing, which seems like a pretty good deal, right? Well, even the characters know that it's not a perfect solution. Sure, it'll stay frozen as long as the Arctic stays cold, which, as we've witnessed over the past little while, might not be a guarantee. One last cheeky nod to climate disaster causing more trouble than you'd think appears when the end shows up. At first, it seems like the movie's just saying, here's the end, we're tying it up with a neat little bow. But the superimposed text then gets a question mark at the end. The end? Uh-oh. So this thing can't be stopped by any known means and will only remain frozen for a limited amount of time. Good luck, future people. Well, I suppose that's actually us at this point. Coming in at number 4, we've got the Creeper from Jeepers Creepers. Before the word creeper was more ubiquitously associated with an explosive green boxy lad, there was the Creeper. A strange and demonic monster with a hunger for flesh and a nose for fear. With a wicked rusty truck too. Oh, and it can fly. This thing really does it all. Every 23rd spring, the Creeper re-emerges to hunt for 23 days. It seems like it shouldn't be too big of a deal, but those 23 days are hell. Especially when it seeks out specific organs that it needs to replace. See, the Creeper is a humanoid but has a very special ability. It can regenerate any body part it needs as long as it eats that part off a human. So if the Creeper finds that its arm is acting up after 23 years, it can go and chomp the arm off someone else and regenerate it, no problem. If it's finding that its heart could be ticking a little better, it's time to go tear somebody's cardio organ out. By constantly eating and killing, the Creeper can hypothetically stay alive forever. And don't think you'll be able to stop it from eating you or anyone else. This thing is strong, crafty, and terrifying. Its supernatural supernaturally strong, and if you try to fight it one-on-one, you're in for a bad time. Under that coat of his is a set of gigantic bat-like wings. Using these, it can fly as fast as an automobile that has enough power to pick up another adult human. It's even been seen partially lifting a truck while flying. Speaking of trucks, the Creeper has a whole array of weaponry and machinery at its disposal too, and the rusty, ridiculous truck is just the beginning. Add in a bunch of throwing daggers, shuriken made from bones, and a crazy axe that can slice through just about anything, and you've got a dangerous monster. So it's functionally immortal if it can keep eating people, and it can hunt down people with no problem. That sounds like an unstoppable monster to me. If only they did stop before making the third movie though. Coming in at number 3, we've got Jason Voorhees from Friday the 13th. Among the many iconic slasher villains that have appeared over the years, this one stands out as particularly hard to stop. Jason Voorhees. Technically not a killer until the second movie, Jason had a troubled childhood. He was bullied and apparently drowned by the campers at Camp Crystal Lake, which caused his mother to become quite the maniac herself. But he did indeed survive and came back after his mother's death to enact revenge himself. Since then, he's killed over 150 people and counting through many different methods. There truly is no stopping him. Every time folks think they've figured out how to keep him down forever, a new, mystical, mysterious, and downright supernatural path seems to open up for the machete-wielding, hockey mask-wearing masked killer. You just can't keep him down. Chain him to the bottom of the lake, he'll find a way out. Riddle him with bullets and then blow him up with a grenade. He'll make someone eat his heart and then take over their body. Put him in deep freeze and transport him to an outer space holding cell. Well, we all know what happens next. Jason is imbued with a lust for life most folks spend their whole lives looking for, and he uses it to keep coming back for more kills. It's pretty insane to think about all the different ways Jason has managed to make it back to the killing floor. Iconic is an understatement, and impossible to stop is just the beginning. There's really only one other killer who might be more ubiquitous, and that killer is coming up right now. At number 2, we've got Freddy Krueger from Nightmare on Elm Street. The claw, the hat, the striped shirt, there is no mistaking Freddy for anyone else. And more than any other killer going, he is impossible to stop. He doesn't have a true physical form, nor can he be tracked down by conventional methods. This movie monster makes his murderous moves in your dreams. How are you gonna take out a dude who can sneak into your head while you're sleeping? Many have tried to stop him, and many have failed. Take the first movie. Nancy thinks she's got the upper hand when she discovers that Freddy runs on fear. She calms down, and he disappears. Easy peasy. Well, not really. After all is said and done and everyone thinks they're safe, Freddy returns again, this time in the form of a hungry convertible and a pair of arms through a front window. Damn, Freddy. Then he returns for 5 more movies, a new nightmare, a big ticket fight with Jason, and a reboot. Freddy really and truly can't be stopped. It's in his DNA. After being burned alive by a bunch of angry parents, he decided to always be around to cause more trouble, to kill more people, and to be a general trickster nuisance. As long as folks need sleep and have fears, Freddy's here. 1, 2, Freddy's coming for you. 3, 4, better lock your door. And finally at number 1, we've got zombies. I'm not even gonna pick a specific movie to attribute zombies to, they're just so ubiquitous at this point. Zombies cannot be stopped, it's just the way it is. Once whatever virus or serum or military grade chemical is introduced to the world at large, humanity is screwed. You can learn to survive and live alongside the zombies, but there is no getting rid of them wholesale. If you blow up Ground Zero, the remnants will spread under the radar, causing a wider variety of undead zombies. If you go into hiding, somebody will inevitably forget to mention they got bit. If you try and fight them head on, more will show up and overwhelm you. Zombies are the ultimate unstoppable force and play at the fears closest to humanity's heart. They represent disease and plague, spreading and killing those we love. They represent the end times, whether biblical or man-made. They represent our fear of other people, especially those who might be violent and dangerous in ways we don't agree with. No matter how a movie approaches its zombies, they cannot be stopped. Whether they're fast or slow, intelligent or brain dead, they slowly creep their way into every part of our lives and destroy everything. And the worst part is, they're more or less just like us. Coming in at number 5, we've got The Thing. A classic way ahead of its time, The Thing is on so many GOAT lists, it's crazy. And of course, it is mostly thanks to the ridiculous adaptability of its titular monster. This alien creature can do all sorts of insane stuff to stay alive, spread its influence, and eventually take over the world. We never get to see that last bit actually happen, but you can probably assume. See, it's gonna continue taking over living bodies while pretending to be harmless, and whenever somebody comes back to check on the research facility, it's gonna spread and build alien tech in solitude, and cause more folks to melt into horrifying abominations that would cause even the most rock-steady Arctic explorer to crap their pants. The Thing timeline is more lengthy than one would expect, too.
See, there are 2 movies in the Modern Thing canon. Although the 2011 prequel wasn't as well received as the folks behind it had hoped, it does a good job of expanding the universe. We get a lot more backstory concerning the alien threat, which is a lot of fun no matter how you slice it, CGI effects be damned. Carpenter's The Thing starts off with a sled dog escaping from a ruined Norwegian research station and the good folks at the American station discovering the carnage left behind. This is the first instance of the Thing not being able to be stopped. It pops out of an alien spacecraft and immediately begins running amok. Right away, it starts infecting people and replicating them to the best of its ability. Even when it's burned alive, it doesn't stop. No sir, it keeps on going, but more stealthily now. Able to replicate a plethora of living creatures, it inspires all sorts of paranoia among the folks out in the middle of frozen nowhere. Their paranoia helps it replicate and spread, and even when careful plans are made to keep it at bay, the Thing finds a way to keep on keeping on. After running through the bowels of the Scandinavian station like a stomach flu, it escaped while posing as a dog. This allowed it to make it into a whole new research facility with a bunch of new, unknowing individuals to infect. It's here that it begins to recreate a spacecraft in order to escape from the frozen tundra and manages to inspire brand new paranoia in everyone present. The paranoia is part of what makes it so unstoppable. If the folks trying to stop it can't trust each other, how are they supposed to figure out any sort of plan? Even at the end, after everything has been destroyed and all but 2 researchers are dead or missing, there's no way to know for sure that the Thing has been done away with. All you can do at that point is share in one final drink, right? That or ruthlessly kill one another to ascertain some sort of closure, but where's the fun in that? Coming in at number 4, we've got The Leprechaun. The sheer volume of Leprechaun movies is all the evidence you need to prove that he's truly unstoppable. After the first cheesy, goofy, Jennifer Aniston-filled movie, one would think that the Leprechaun had been done away with, right? He gets melted by a 4-leaf clover chewing gum bullet, tossed down a well, skeletonized, and then blown up with gasoline. But a leprechaun's duty is never done. He's gonna get all his gold. His whole deal is never giving up until his pot is 100% full once again. So of course, he comes back, and again, and again, and again. How many Leprechaun movies are there again? 8? Not all of them are canonically coherent, but the Leprechaun makes 8 separate feature film appearances. The first Leprechaun is a pretty simple story. Supernatural creature is locked in a box for years, gets out, terrorizes family. But from there, things get a little more complicated and set-piece reliant. Like in Leprechaun 2, he's on a quest for a bride. He makes it to modern-day LA and has a fine time causing all sorts of trouble during his 1,000-year quest to wed an O'Day woman. When you promise to marry someone's descendant in 1,000 years, you've got to stick to your guns. Even after he's stabbed with a stake and bursts into flames, he makes it to another sequel. Not even straight to video can keep the Leprechaun down. Leprechaun 3 brings the green goofball to Vegas, where he's revealed to have been turned into a magical medallion and comes back to life on the Las Vegas Strip. He's hot on the tail of one of his wish-granting coins that makes its way to all sorts of colorful characters. In the end, he's defeated by a flamethrower, but that's still not enough to keep him at bay. Number 4 is possibly one of the most infamous iterations of the Leprechaun, as he manages to make it out of Earth's atmosphere and into outer space. Once in the cosmos, he kills a man with a lightsaber and is blown up by a grenade. But space death can't keep him down either. He manages to travel up a man's pee stream and infect him with space leprechaun gonorrhea, and is reborn later by exploding out of that same dude's member. And of course, there are the Leprechaun in the Hood movies, which are in a class all to themselves. The Leprechaun was resurrected twice since the Hood duo wrapped up, so there really is no stopping this wee lad. Coming in at number 3, we've got Xenomorphs, the perfect killing machines, right? You do not want to come face to face with a Xenomorph, not under any circumstances. These things do not play. They will tear your crew apart and cling on until the very last moment, even if you blast them into the cold vacuum of space. Crazier still, even if you hop into stasis for the better part of a century, they'll still be around when you return to the waking world. There's probably going to be a whole lot more of them too, which, not great. Really, the only proven way to deal with one of these is to fire it into space via airlock expulsion, and that doesn't even guarantee that it'll die. It'll probably be back at some point. Plus, they can essentially take on the form of whatever host they violently use for reproduction. We're all probably most familiar with the human phenotype, but if they got their nasty hands on a more powerful base model, well, we'd be screwed. Look, if something can fight a predator and not die immediately, it probably can't be stopped. And when something that strong can reproduce under really harsh conditions and annihilate entire species, well, there's a big alien storm coming. Coming in at number 2, we've got Cenobites. Now here is a fun one. As long as humans have extreme tastes, Cenobites will be around. Although they technically originate from a place beyond our understanding, they're truly physical manifestations of all sorts of fetishes. And there's nothing that will stop humans from being a little freaky and kinky. I mean, come on. Religion has tried for ages and to no avail. In fact, I think they might have made it worse. So yeah, there's no stopping the Cenobites, and that's just a meta-analysis. If we take a look at their powers outlined in the many Hellraiser movies, we'll also find that they're not going away anytime soon. First off, they exist in an extra-dimensional realm, one that humans don't really have any way of accessing unless brought there by Cenobites or Cenobite technology. They seem to be focused on expanding sensation past the normal limits, usually using torture that doesn't follow what we know as the laws of physics. They got powers too, ranging from telepathy to crazy weapons to the ability to appear pretty much anywhere once summoned. And if you summon them, they are not going to give up until they've brought you back to their dimension to experience whatever torture they've got in store for you. Plus, one way or another, someone's going back to hell with them. Even if you skirt them, they'll take somebody else. Clive Barker is legendary at creating horrifying creatures beyond our wildest dreams and nightmares, and the Cenobites are some of the best known and most deeply explored. And finally, at number 1, we've got Michael Myers. Who else but the Boogeyman can top this list, right? For reasons hidden from everyone but himself, Michael Myers wants Laurie Strode dead, and he will not stop until he makes it happen. Stab him in the eye with a hanger, shoot him multiple times, knock him out a second-story window, and he'll get up and disappear into the night, all to the tune of that sweet, sweet Carpenter synth. Then he'll come back and wreck a hospital in search of poor Laurie. Then he'll periodically reappear in different scenarios looking for more carnage. He might appear to die, but he'll always get back up. If you thought the Leprechaun had an impressive run, you ain't seen nothing yet. Mr. Myers is in a grand total of 12 films, all involving his ridiculous persistence on a quest to kill more people. Technically, there are 13 Halloween films, but Myers has no bearing on the plot of Halloween 3, and Halloween Kills isn't out yet. But seriously, no matter what you do, Michael is gonna keep on trucking. He wants to stomp those heads. He needs to staple teens to the wall. He's gotta boil some people in therapy baths, and he'll be damned if you try and stop him. Even after a decades-long stint in the slammer, he is just as powerful with just as strong of a Strode radar. You can't keep evil down. Sheesh. I'd say lock your doors, but we all know that's not gonna do anything. Just continue to live your life as boringly as possible. Maybe that'll keep the creatures away. Coming in at number 5, we've got Dr. Carl Hill from the Reanimator series. If you want a truly gross monster coupled with some excellent execution, both in terms of special effects and killing power, you need to look towards the world's worst doctor/professor, Dr. Carl Hill. What a jerk. This dude dedicates his life to making curious medical students miserable for questioning his foregone conclusions and stealing the work of folks who might be doing better than him. If that kind of professional monster behavior isn't enough to freak you out, you should also know that he harbors a weird crush on the dean's young daughter. Oh, and also he gets decapitated and comes back to life. That last one's hard to ignore. Worse yet, he somehow maintains control over the rest of his body, even when totally separated from it. Now, in the original Reanimator, Dr. Hill gets up to plenty of mischief. He breaks into his student's home to steal research and comes across Herbert West mid-experiment. After trying to leverage his power over the young doctor, Hill is knocked out by a shovel and decapitated. A brief experiment involving 2 injections occurs, reviving old Carl and his body. Now, with a psychic link between dome and limbs, he knocks West out and goes to wreak more havoc. He kidnaps poor Megan Halsey and straps her to an operating table before attempting to give her head. To ensure nobody messes with him, he manages to revive a whole bunch of other corpses and psychically controls them too. In the end, he's injected with a deadly overdose of reagent, which causes his body to mutate in extremely grotesque ways. Somehow this doesn't end the dastardly Doc, as he makes a second appearance in Bride of Reanimator. His decapitated head is found in storage, and a misguided doctor reapplies the reagent. Thus begins a whole new era of Dr. Hill madness, where he is outfitted with bat wings and flies around causing chaos. The last thing anyone wants is a murderous, exploitative, and weirdly aggressive doctor flying around with bat wings, but here we are. Of course, his extra mobility makes it easier than ever for him to control reanimated zombies, and he storms the West House once again. In the end, they still aren't quite able to actually stop Dr. Hill. The strategy used to halt his meddling is to bury him alive in an underground crypt, but Hill doesn't even seem that upset by it. He knows he'll get another chance to be a maniac, although Carl does not make an appearance in the prison-based threequel Beyond Reanimator. I wonder what he's up to now. Coming in at number 4, we've got Demons from the Demons series. There are a whole lot of reasons as to why the demons featured here cannot be stopped. See, there are 2 Demons movies that I accept into the Demons canon. Number 3 is not directed by Bava, so I reject it. Also, I haven't seen it, so I'm not going to talk on it today. Right, so Demons, that can't be stopped. So the thing about Demons is that there's always a film within a film. There are potentially 4 universes in which these demons exist and can do what they do. There's the movie theater world of the first Demons, as well as the movie the audience watches. Then in Demons 2, there's the apartment complex, as well as the old TV movie playing. Lots of demons and lots of ways to accidentally summon them into your world, and once they arrive, things go sideways. They pop up super quickly, basically out of nowhere, and kill as many people as they can. Infection follows soon after using some zombie-style rules. Get attacked by one of these things, you'll be one soon. At first, it doesn't seem so bad. If the captive audience can fight their way out of the theater, they might have a chance. But lo and behold, as our protagonist power couple makes it onto the streets, they learn that the infection has spread way further than anticipated. So they ride into the wilderness, accompanied by a badass demon-fighting family. So the whole world is infected now, eh? But it doesn't end there. Apparently these very demons that took over the world were thwarted at some point, leading us to the events of Demons 2. So anyone who returns to these ruins and disturbs the frozen bodies of the creatures will bring them back to life, which happens in a made-for-TV movie, which shouldn't cause any problems. But it does anyways. The demons that awoke on TV also crawl through the screen, causing a second plague of monsters to descend upon the world at large. So even putting the demons in the ground and then documenting what not to do if you come across one isn't enough to prevent the resurgence of evil. That is some seriously unstoppable stuff. Plus, if we assume that this new method of TV travel is achievable by any demon through any TV, there are going to be a whole lot more outbreaks. Not ideal. Coming in at number 3, we've got Art the Clown from Terrifier. We don't know for sure if he's unstoppable at this point, seeing as the sequel is dropping soon, but from what we know, the unstoppable hypothesis is probably accurate. This is one ruthless killer with seemingly supernatural powers. At first, you might just assume that Art is a maniac in monochrome grease paint, but as one bears witness to the madness he brings to the world, it becomes apparent that he is more than just a bloodthirsty clown. First of all, he seems to be able to move from place to place very quickly. I'm not gonna say he can be many places at once, but sometimes it sort of feels that way. He's strong enough to overpower just about anyone, even if a few folks team up on him. Even when he's knocked out cold, he'll muster the strength to get up, hit someone with a truck, and then eat their face. Yikes. Plus, even if multiple policemen gun him down, he's just gonna reawaken in the morgue and ruin the poor mortician's day. Nasty. Like all classic slasher villains, every time you think you've adequately dealt with Art, he'll come back stronger and crazier than ever. Hell, you can even look to the precursor to Terrifier, All Hallows Eve, and see Art in all sorts of different iterations. He's everywhere and nowhere in this movie. Kidnapping train riders, chasing down folks on dark roads, dismembering bodies, and crawling through VHS tapes mysteriously left for kids on Halloween. It seems to defy all logic, all laws of reality, but hey, that's Art for you. Coming in at number 2, we've got Joseph/Aaron from Creep. Anyone who's ever dealt with a creep knows that it is extremely hard to get rid of one, like way harder than it needs to be. But I suppose that's part of what makes these folks creeps in the first place, their unending resilience in the face of other people's discomfort. And Joseph, well, he's a very special case. After an entire movie of being creepy to poor Aaron, he decides to finally put a pin in it. And by pin, I mean axe, and by it, I mean the back of Aaron's head. Yeah, even after doing his best to regain Aaron's trust after cornering him while wearing a wolf mask and sending him creepy DVDs and gifts, Joseph couldn't resist murdering his videographer. We see all the other DVDs he's amassed over the years, full of the experiences he's had with other hapless individuals who are no longer with us. He's obviously been at this killing thing for a while. Then in the sequel, he literally takes Aaron's name and then finds a new victim. It gets a lot more meta though, as he admits up front that he's a creepy serial killer, but his videographer doesn't believe him. The uncertainty plays a huge role in the movie, and Aaron takes full advantage. In the end, he decides that both he and his muse/biographer must die together, so he kicks into murder mode once more. Even after stabbing himself a bunch in the stomach, he's able to drag Sarah into a shallow grave before telling the camera he's actually decided against dying for now. You know, because if you get inspired, you can just ignore all these knife wounds in your belly. He definitely continues his creep capers too. And finally, at number 1, we've got the tall man from Phantasm. See, I made a joke in the comments a while ago about Reggie's ponytail being the true unstoppable monster in the Phantasm series, but I have since come to realize the ever-present power of the Tall Man. Played by the legendary Angus Scrimm, this mortician-turned-immortal monster always finds a way to skirt death. When he was known as Jebediah Morningside, he became obsessed with the connection between our world and the world of the dead. And once he discovered that link, there was no going back. Fight all you want, you are not gonna get rid of this grizzled old man. He'll shapeshift, he'll send silver spheres after you, and he'll keep coming back. You can hurt him, sure, but to kill the Tall Man is an impossible task. Best to avoid interacting with him at all. He's made it through 5 Phantasm movies, so it's safe to say he's here to stay.